So, I'm Alex Mitchell. I am joined by a veritable horde of alumni. So, shall we all introduce ourselves? Well, I already have, but for those who don't know you, who are you? Where have you come from to join us today? And how long ago was it that you were a student? So we'll start far end.
Yo, I'm Jacob Gibbins. I'm a junior game designer at 1010 Games, making a Funko Pop game. It's pretty wacky. I'm a graduate from last year. I worked on Dr. Bounce, which was cool games, those cool teams. It was a really good time. Yeah, so recent graduate, now I'm here. It's really cool to be.
I'm Matt. I'm a character artist at 1010 Games. We came from Warrington. I was a graduate 2 years ago now, and just happy to be back and seeing how the course is.
So I'm Bart. I graduated 2 years ago. I'm also part of 1010 Games as an animator. And yeah, it's awesome to be here again, see all the student games and everybody.
Cool. So yeah, quite a nice mix. It's nice that you all decided to cluster in your appropriate representational studios. It's nice. So I guess first question is to kind of contextualize a little bit for people in the audience and people at home. Talk a little bit about your experience at Falmouth. Kind of what was that like being a student here way back when? I'm sure it's probably still very similar to for some of you who were here very recently. Maybe a little bit different for those who are slightly older. Sorry, that sounds mean. So, but yeah, so what was it like being a student for you back when you were a student, if you can remember all those many moons ago?
I was going to say, making me use my brain now, Christ. I think first year for me is a bit of a blur at this point, but I remember particularly third year, I was kind of just going, sort of, get in the games academy, work with the team, get the project done, also do my dissertation, down 300 milligrams of caffeine every day to get through it. That
Some
kind of
things
thing.
never change, yeah.
No, especially at work, no. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, is that a similar experience for most of you?
I was the second year through, and so I saw the course when it was in a tiny room up in the upper part of the campus, and seen it grow into the massive studio down there. It's just absolutely amazing to see the trajectory of the course, and it's so cool to come back and see where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing, the EXPO last year, and obviously the EXPO option so far is really cool right now. It's definitely a peak aspect of the Games Academy. It's just amazing seeing all the student games, and it's really cool when I was doing that as well. It's really fun doing teamwork.
This is my first expo because me and Bart were from the year where COVID first hit, and we had to do it online. So this is my first in-person one.
Well, has it lived up to your expectations?
Yeah, it's crazy to see.
Yeah.
I think we got a peak at the year before as expo because we visited that, but it's just improved so much. It's just a cool thing to work to the end of third year and then for masters on.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So obviously you've all made it, not just to here, but obviously into the industry. And I think we always say, yes, you will learn at university, but also there's more to learn when you get out. None of you, I think, started at senior position, though. We have people now getting there. So do you want to talk a little about some of the skills that things you wish you had taken the time to learn before you got out, that you think for people here and watching wherever else, things that you would love to say, if there's one thing to do, this is it, start now. Anything?
Yeah, I think I got one. Portfolios. Making a portfolio and figuring out how to actually do a portfolio is a skill in itself. I always told people in second year and whatnot to start doing portfolios as soon as possible. The earlier the better, honestly. It's not just doing the portfolio, it's getting the portfolio done to get feedback. I remember I met my line manager at Grads and Games, Connector event years ago, and he gave me feedback on it. And then you get that connection and you can iterate on it. You can't really iterate on it the month before you're applying to jobs per se.
Yeah.
Except for today when we have portfolio reviews.
Yes. If you have a portfolio to review, that is happening. You should go and take part in that. And if you don't have a portfolio, nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Definitely
that's
one.
Yeah.
I guess leading on from that, it's kind of important to remember that they say, your portfolio is probably as strong as its weakest part. So, you can't really be too precious about your projects, even though you've got that piece which you want to keep on. But it's good to constantly trim it and look to upgrade it. And if you're applying for jobs, I'd say make specialized portfolio pieces as well. to show the studio that you're like keen. They love that.
Yeah, there's a piece of advice I was given many, many moons ago, which is if you're going to apply somewhere, do a little bit of research about where you're applying to. It does go a long way to kind of show up and say, hi, I do know what you do, and not just, hi, I want a job, what are we doing? But you know, it's your career, you can do with it what you will.
That's true. Actually, for the studio that I applied for, because they made the old time splitting games, they were like, do you know anything about it? So I quickly watched like a playthrough, like 2 hours before, like, oh yeah, done all of that, I know all about it, mate. So yeah, you can cheat, and that's fine.
It's not called cheating, it's called research.
Yeah.
I think I did the same thing about the company. I think I looked up like the about us thing like before the interview. I knew about the company, but you know, I looked up like what was the CEO's name and stuff. I had it written on a post-it note. They didn't ask me, but you know, just in case they did.
I did the same thing. 1010 has another game. Like our first game is like the game that we're making now, so I just kind of had to Google where everybody was from, and I was like, this guy, inspiration.
I just played Total War.
Yeah.
It was literally like while I was getting ready for my interview, I was playing Total War.
Do you remember what faction you were playing?
It was Shogun 2, so it was a Japanese name. They were the ones that start off with the bows in the corner. That's all I remember.
I played that one as well.
Yeah, the best one.
No, very cool, very cool. Yeah, I mean, obviously, hopefully you've all grown as developers throughout your time in university and outside. And it's good to hear, you know, we kind of jumped the gun a little bit, which is, you know, if there was one thing that you could pass on, you know, which is building a portfolio piece, which feeds onto the other question I was prompted with, which is talking a little bit about building a portfolio and about, you know, building out that kind of presence and about building what many would refer to as your own brand. Do you have any pro strats tips to help people get recognized that, you know, are struggling or things to keep in mind?
In terms of portfolios, I mean, I think it's super important to be able to like analyze your work, analyze the projects you've done, and understand what worked, what didn't, and why. Because lots of interviews, particularly if it's your first one, is going to be like based on analyzing what you did, why you did it, what went wrong, and how you could improve it. And like being able to show that kind of reflection is really important for showing that you'll be a good person to work with in the future.
Oh, definitely. And often in an interview, they'll crit your work to see how you respond to it, essentially. So yeah, you just got to be able to kind of take that on board and iterate. Because you know, in the actual industry itself, you'll probably be stuck on like the same thing for a while, just making small changes. So you know, don't let it get to you, basically.
I would say as well, it's easy to miss, but make sure you're like actual web design if you're hosting a portfolio on the site. Like, make sure it's easy to click through and like not a pain to navigate, because that's a big pain point. Like, it can kind of block you if it's not.
From a character side as well, we usually get portfolios where we don't even know if they can make things for games because they've just done like really cool sculpts of things and all that, but we're a games company, like we don't know if they know how to optimize things and all that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I'd say like including breakdowns of your work is they'll fucking love it.
I love PDFs. When they give us a PDF, like a 40-page breakdown of what you did in the process and everything, that's you have to do that for everything. It's cool when it happens.
What was that? Every single leaf, every poly. Yeah. But no, I mean, there was a piece of advice, speaking of websites, that I was given many, many, many moons ago now by Gareth Lewis, who still is now with us again, but kind of on the online capacity. Some of you might remember him.
I remember Gareth. Yeah.
Which was, if you were applying for a programming job and you're hosting everything on a portfolio website, make sure that the code behind the website actually does function properly, because programmers tend to be kind of nosy and they will have a look sometimes. And if you have loads of like fun little Easter eggs in there, like cursing and stuff, they'll see it, and that doesn't necessarily reflect the brand that you want to represent. So be careful, people are nosy sometimes. You know, just a small thing. But yeah, I mean, I suppose it'd be a good chance now to talk a little about some of the journeys that you went on. I mean, some of you obviously might have that more fresh in your mind. Some of you maybe, you know, you don't want to remember those times way back when. Now you're like, no, I have a job now, don't make so excited. But, you know, what was it like, you know, applying for a job, getting your name out there, kind of going through, did you apply day one, easy, first interview, walked into the job, or did you have to wrestle and fight your way through?
I kind of did have that experience, actually. I applied to 2 jobs, both of them motion capture. Frontier got back to me first, and I realized I'd put no motion capture work on my portfolio. And then Creative Assembly got back to me, and I just sort of charisma checked my way through the interviews.
Yeah. For those at 1010, what was it like for you?
So for me and Matthew, it's actually very similar because after uni finished, we kind of just went back to where we're from, which is Warrington. And the guy who came to visit us in college, us in our game dev course, he started his own studio with a bunch of other people, and then the networking we got from college kind of just popped up and like, oh, here's a job, and we both decided to apply, and then
it
happened.
Stars kind of aligned for that. So like just as we finished college, 1010 was opening up. We knew Arthur Parsons, the design director, from our teacher, because he set up the TT to Priestley internship program where you could just like go in as an intern from college and then get that experience. And me and Bart were two of the people who helped show him around, so we just had that like pre-established knowledge of each other, like just a tiny bit of name recognition. And so when they started the company, they needed animators and character artists, and he was in contact with our teacher, and our teacher put our names forward, and then we messaged on LinkedIn, and that was the process. We went in, got the art tests, got the second interview, and
yeah. So what was the art test process like?
So we're making a Funko Pop game, so it was literally just make a Funko Pop of anything you want.
That's a pretty open-ended brief.
Yeah, it was pretty simple. It gave us like a rough poly count. But yeah, no, it was fairly simple. It was like they gave you a week, but it's usually a bit bonus points if you do it before. To a decent standard as well. But yeah, no, that was the process for us.
Yeah, so for animation it was a bit different. It was mostly just about like the generic stuff such as body mechanics, like weighting, timing, etc. Which was, funnily enough, not done with a Funko Pop, just a generic human character.
Oh, they didn't have one at that point.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Studio
you hadn't done your art test.
Genuinely, yeah. I was like the first project I was doing was making base meshes to put out for art tests and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for me, I entered like some events that like Inter Games have. I think now there's also a Grads in Games like design competition, which wasn't there when I was still in uni. So defo do that. But I entered there's like an IG50 award, and if you sign up for that, it's just like 50 developers that like aren't employed, and it kind of gets their name out there. And I think that really helped me because that was something I could bring up in interviews. I could be like, right, I got selected for this IG50 award, and that's really helped. Being able to bounce off that, and then also like strong portfolio pieces. It was pretty soon after graduating, which was very fortunate, and yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say I feel like Dan's gonna love us for mentioning Grads in Games so many times.
Yeah.
But
I don't even need to mention like, hey, you should plug that now. It's fine.
I met him in real life actually a while back.
Yeah.
I think the point for me was kind of doing Grads in Games, the Connector event. It's where I met my original line manager, Phil. That's how I found about the company, and then years later I ended up applying to it. And kind of from there, it was kind of like a standard programming test, C++, that kind of thing. I applied elsewhere to other jobs as well, but that was the one I went with in the end. They're all pretty standard. You do a C++ test, you get an interview if you're lucky, and then the interview, you tend to get offered the job from there. So for me, it was pretty straightforward. I think I applied to 7 places, got offered 1, maybe 2, but I told the other one I didn't want it because I had gone the D321. So
yeah. No, fair.
Yeah, I think for me it was quite frantic. I think it's fair to say like a lot of you are going to be, graduating soon and looking for jobs. And I kind of remember the last, 2 months of term, everyone was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I kind of just got into the routine of applying for jobs like every day. Obviously, like none of them got back to me, but then I did manage to get the one, which is where I currently work. But I remember I was given some really good advice by AD, which is kind of like, if you're in the interview, that means they think you're good enough and they're kind of checking that they actually can, physically work with you. So it's kind of just a test to make sure you're not ridiculous, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it was kind of like the shotgun approach of just sending out applications everywhere, and then some got back, and then a lot asked you to do design tests, which is like, we'll kind of test you on like design fundamentals or like designing a piece of content for whichever studio you're applying for. So it's pretty useful to know like inside and out what their games are about. I ended up doing that for Creative Assembly and then got on board there. Yeah.
Another little tip for applying for jobs actually, how many people have CVs here? Very nice. Yeah. You should always have a CV, just because like the people who are taking applications have to go through so many, and most of them they're just going to chuck in the bin immediately. So you kind of have to make it like stand out, like you were saying, by doing search for star grads and games. It gives you like a nice stamp they can just see immediately and be like, oh, okay, you're actually serious.
Yeah.
The another thing that might be worth mentioning is like if you do get an interview, it's worth trying to get feedback from the interviewer if you didn't get the position, because it's a really good learning opportunity to go into the next one afterwards. And I've also found it quite useful to like record the questions they ask you, because you can think about it later about how you would answer that next time if you had another opportunity.
For sure, yeah.
While you're applying, it's important to just like keep check of your mental health as well, because like you'll apply for a lot of places and a lot of them won't respond, or they'll like respond negatively, not negatively, but you won't get the job without feedback or anything. But it's like, yeah, so in the time that I left uni to go to 1010, there was like a month of just, I applied for like 30 jobs, maybe 4 of them responded with a no at least.
There's a lot of ghosting, definitely.
Yeah.
Just kind of like do things outside of just work on your portfolio that'll just keep you
Mentally sane for that time.
Yeah, it's one of those things where don't take it too personally. People are busy and they're also antisocial. You should know. It's everyone's like that. It's fine. No, not literally everyone, but yeah, don't take it too personally. I think that's one of the big things is you won't get every job you apply for, but you only ever need to get the one that you actually end up in. So don't lose heart. But also grads and games, other kind of places that you can go to, events, EGX, Res, whatever. We mentioned it a little earlier. I'm supposed to talk about it more thoroughly, which is about the importance of building a network. And there are ways that you can do that, but no one came here to listen to me. They came here to listen to you guys. So building a network, what are the important things that you think everyone should know, do, not do,
don't be an asshole, basically. People will remember, shocker. And stuff's on the internet forever, and if you kind of have a reputation or a name of being someone who's like hard to work with, or like whatever, annoying, or just anything that can affect your chances negatively, don't do that. Be good.
It does start in education as well, because when anybody from Falmouth applies to 1010, the art director always looks for me, Bart and Jacob, and like, have you met this person? Do you know who they are?
Yeah.
And it's either like really positive or, so when you get the interview, there's usually 2. There's one, a technical interview, which asks, can you do the job? And there's another interview which asks if you should work at the studio. Is the studio good for you? Are you good for the studio? And if that's like a no going into it, then you've kind of missed out.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess what's quite interesting is, we're at uni, or most of us are, and you kind of feel like, once I start working, it's all going to change. But really, the skills that you're learning now, it's basically the same. I thought things would be different, but it's just like a continuation of uni, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'm just learning and getting paid for it, which rocks. But yeah, it's just like working as a team is just so important in any creative industry, but especially games. So definitely focus on that.
Yeah, just to kind of like extol the virtues of building up a network, like it's really useful to be able to speak to other people at different studios, because you might at some point want to apply there, so you can see what the sort of conditions are there and like what are the benefits, all this kind of stuff. And if your studio like ever goes under or makes people redundant, then you can reach out to your network and maybe get a position somewhere else. So it's super handy in both those ways.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys all have gone through the ringer of getting 2 jobs, building your networks, which hopefully you now would say you have a decent network of contacts. How did that come about? Did you just start spamming everyone on LinkedIn, hitting people up on Twitter, kicking down their front doors? What was the process? Hopefully not kicking down anyone's front door.
I think going on to what Matt was saying, like it starts with like your uni year group. Like if you make sure you integrate well into them, then there's already a sizable network there, and then when they get jobs, you can kind of like latch onto their networks as well a little bit. I think as well like game jams and competitions and like some game dev meetups, because some of them then aren't like industry exclusive. It's like if you work on games, you can come just chat to people. So that really helps. And then like say with LinkedIn, like obviously don't just cold spam people, like random people, but like just feel free to reach out to certain people. There's also like I know there's a contacts list for like graduates out there.
There is,
that I use that quite a bit and would like DM people. So this is people that are willing to chat on Twitter and LinkedIn. So I just chatted to them, just chucked them a portfolio and said, what do you think and all this, and then just chat naturally beyond that, you know, because generally they're lovely people. So
Yeah, I think that list is by Joe Hobbs on Twitter.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, it's if you want to Google Joe Hobbs on Twitter, the link should be pretty easily available.
It's on his pinned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really useful resource. Really good for networking. So
Yeah.
I'll say another good networking one is the people in the year above you, to be honest, because they get jobs before you, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, kind of, you know, they get in there. You
That's
know,
true.
If they liked you, you know, yeah.
You can always slide in there and be like, please.
Yeah. You know how much you loved me, you know, when I was in second year.
what's great
Give me a
about-
reference.
Yeah.
that's what's great about the GA, right? Like, so you can mingle with all the other year groups, just see like, that's a cool thing you're working on. Tell me a bit about it and all this, and you've already done it. You've done a bit of
Definitely,
networking.
yeah. Like I know the third years and the alumni, they're like a bit older, a bit scary, but honestly, they're kind of just there to help you. So you can totally just get them to like crit you up and stuff.
Yeah, I would also say take any opportunity you can. So like even today, obviously us, other people from industries who came down here to see your games, and just go about, have a chat with them, even a small chat, and then you apply to their studio, and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that person. They were quite nice, and then so that's already a big bonus.
Yeah, so be social. Don't be weird. Be social. Maybe be a little weird, stand out, but not so weird that they go, I mean, that was something I remember hearing many, I keep saying many moons ago. I'm old, all right, it's fine. But I remember hearing, which is, if you're going to apply to a studio, don't be weird about it. Don't send them a job application for every single position they have, because you don't want to seem like you're a crazed fan, rather than like a potential, applicant. So a little bit of restraint. I know we're not always the best at that, but a little bit goes a long way.
No, very true. Like with your applications, it's good to focus on a particular area. So like if you're applying for a prop role, then in your portfolio whip up some prop pieces and kind of modify your CV around that, because they'll notice it and they'll like it, which is good.
Just on the CV thing as well, like you want to present yourself like professionally, so you want to avoid like level up bars or D&D character sheets as CVs, which we get quite a lot.
I've seen a few of those. Yeah.
So yeah, just take it professionally and not like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have any real major next questions, so I suppose we can open it up to some questions amongst the audience. If there are people with questions, we'll pass a mic around in a second. This is the surprise round. I don't have any preparation for this one, so I'm not going to apologize, but just be prepared.
Sure.
So yeah, does anybody have any burning questions immediately?
Okay. Do any of you use custom game engines, or do you just use like a standard like Unity or Unreal? Because obviously some larger companies use their own in-house tools.
Yeah, so custom engines. I'm sure some of you, I'm pretty sure CA have their own custom engine.
We
so
do.
do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I have never seen or touched our engine. I work in a building half an hour away from the rest of the company. I don't touch it.
Yeah, I
Stay
mean,
away, mocap.
it depends on the project, because like there's multiple projects running at CA, so like smaller ones would use like Unity or Unreal, but Total has its own engine as well, so it depends on the size and scope and what you want it to do.
Total One needs its own engine. It's too big to run in Unreal.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories about having your own engine, but we use Unreal Engine 5 just because everybody's doing it nowadays.
My answer is just non-disclosure agreements.
Yeah. I refuse to answer on the grounds that it may. Yeah, that's fine.
No.
I mean, yeah. So there are companies that can't talk about things, but yeah, it's a nice mix. Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a question about portfolios. So you mentioned definitely don't go for like a D&D like sort of sheet where it's just like showing like listed out. I mean, yes, it should be formal. And then you mentioned you need to stand out, which of course is an obvious question, but how you do it. So what would you say is the best way to stand out? I'm not just talking about decorating. So the layout, what you choose to show, what you don't show.
So how you design a portfolio and kind of how you design your CV to stand out but also look professional. Is that
Yeah. So I guess what they'll really want to see is like past work experience. Obviously difficult because you're at uni and you're probably not getting employed, But you know, if you like worked in a project, you can like razzle it up a bit. So like, oh, I worked as part of a team for like a year-long project. It's not lying, but yeah, it's like half true. Things like that, I think, would be great. Just any job experience you have, really, and the amount of time you work there. But I will say, if you are looking for odd jobs, definitely look on Polycount, because they're always looking for artists and programmers, and you can just pick up, you know, a prop here, a prop there. It's good pocket money, and it looks good on your CV.
Yeah. Include small achievements at uni as well. I was a technical assistant when I was in the second and third year of uni, and that was something that was brought up in my interview because the art director's son also did the same thing, so he knew like what went into it, that it was, you know, helping to teach, and that's kind of that was one of the things that basically helped me get the job. Is just listing those smaller achievements that you did, like technical assistant, my game won this award, my game did this. Those are really nice to see on the CV.
Yeah.
Definitely, if some of you are lucky or skilled enough to get the Game of the Year award, put that in your CV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of specifically the portfolio you're mentioning, the main things that will be stand out will be your project itself. That's the important one. I'd recommend GIFs and videos wherever possible. Quite frankly, I can't be bothered to read 10 paragraphs. I really, you know, I already did that in my dissertation, thanks. So make concise videos, GIFs, you know, make it
show don't tell.
Show don't tell. We like pretty pictures.
Yeah, it's got to be it's got to be like consumable quickly.
Yeah.
They've got to be able to get the gist of who you are, what you do, instantly, basically.
Yeah. They've seen hundreds.
Yeah.
They don't want to sit there reading 20 paragraphs.
God no.
And like Elmo said, like make sure you're only including the best and most current work. Because we've had it before where we've been going through portfolios and like we saw something awesome, then we saw something like really bad, and it was just like a word, oh yeah, it's from 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing that'll make you stand out is, like, the quality of the content in the portfolio. And, I mean, the big benefit that, like, you guys have is that you've been working in teams, making games in teams, part of multidisciplinary teams for 3 years. Like, it's very rare that people have that on their CV. And, like, you can show that you can work collaboratively with others.
Yeah.
And that's a massive part of, like, showing that you'd be a good fit into a studio.
For sure, yeah.
So you should, like, make that a prominent feature of your portfolio, the fact that you can do that.
I know earlier I said like your portfolio is only as strong as the weakest piece, but when it comes to like game dev, do include your game, even if it's not that polished, because showing that you're able to work as part of a team, that'll just do wonders for you.
Yeah.
Seems like that was a good question. Got a lot of people talking about a lot of things. Any other questions? I see hands. Let's go.
Obviously, in the games industry, there's a lot of different personalities, and in uni, when you don't get along with somebody in the creative projects, particularly an indie project, it's quite an issue.
That's why.
Yeah.
You're basically being paid to get on with these people. So.
Yeah. If they're just a bit dislikable, then you just kind of have to live with it. But if they're like genuinely a terrible person, there's a beautiful thing called the probation period, where they can just get binned off after 6 months, 6 weeks, months.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on the company, but yeah.
Also, if someone is being like actually bothersome, don't be afraid to speak to your superiors about it, because that just should not be a thing in a company.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, HR's your friend with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things. Like, obviously, in a real environment, it's a hierarchical structure, so you can go and speak to your lead or someone above you about a situation if it's developing. And like, in terms of like disagreements, like creative disagreements, you can, like, the most powerful thing is to just disagree and then commit to fully 100% to the idea that's selected. Like, you just got to go with it because it's
your job, innit?
Yeah, exactly. So
kind of have to develop a second personality. You've got to have your professional self. So I've worked with loads of actors that I just legitimately cannot stand, but I still have to be professional and get my job done to the best of my ability.
Yeah, and I suppose there's something about that kind of, at the end of the day, people are going to look at the work that you've done, and they're going to see it as a collective whole, not just, they're not going to see all the disagreements and butting of heads and problems that you've had along the way. They'll see the end product and go, this is really good, or, yeah, it seems like there was some problems, ooh. But it's not going to be, they're not going to name specifically people on a project. They're going to say either the project was good or bad, and really, you're trying to do your best, right?
Yeah, I think that's something that people tend to lose sight of sometimes, that it is the end result, which is kind of going to speak, for everyone. It's not just affecting you because you have to go into work and see this person who you don't like. But yeah, just, keep that in your mind, that the end result is what's going to, be your mark, essentially.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Anything burning? Ooh, we do have another question. Let's go.
So speaking of portfolios, if you look through any portfolios, do you find it used in like context of when something was made or things like that? Like, given like a timeline style thing, do you find that kind of system useful?
Yeah, so kind of having a kind of breakdown of when projects came about.
When someone's professional career, how many years into it, something was made. Like first year working in games, that kind of thing on portfolio side.
In terms of, portfolio, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
How relevant do you think it is, the kind of time frame of when things were done?
I'd say no, personally. It doesn't really matter. Like, if you're good, and if your work's shit, then it's shit. It doesn't really matter how long you've been working. You know what I mean? So just show the good kush, basically, yeah.
I think it's worth including how long you spent in it, potentially. On my portfolio, I used to date them and how long I worked on them and how many people were in it. Stuff like that tends to be a bit more useful. Just that gives clarity on like the time you put into it, so we can roughly judge it.
Yeah, it's important not to use the date as an excuse as well. Like, if you're not proud of it, just take it off.
Yeah.
I would actually say it's quite important, because I think that it's really useful to be able to see how someone's developed, what lessons they're learning, and how they're developing as like a designer. What kind of level are they thinking at as they progress through these different projects. You can pick that apart with them, and other designers will probably pick that apart when you get interviewed by them. So it's useful to be able to explain where you were, what you're thinking at that time, and like how you learned from those older projects and how that informs your design thinking now.
So I suppose it depends on, what route you're in, because I think the art side of thing, they want to see what you can do now.
Yeah.
Whereas design, obviously, I think most of design really is the kind of thinking through rather than sort of mechanically doing it. It's thinking about it and then processing what you're doing. And I mean, programming.
It's programming.
Good luck.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, excellent question. Do we have any other questions? Any other burning? Yep. I love that the questions are like bouncing across the room. Just make sure the mic gets well traveled.
I was going to sort of inquire into how crunch culture is kind of approached in industry, and how, if there are any measures that your respective companies sort of implement to either minimize that or differences between crunch in uni, whether that be like project management problems, and how it is in industry particularly.
Okay, so this seems like a kind of broad thing, but generally kind of how the companies that they're in handle crunch,
measures to
maybe a bit of experience of what it was like for them from uni to now, how crunch has changed for them. Yeah.
See, I'm quite lucky because my company really cares about crunch. If I do a minute overtime, they'll shoot me. The reason we log our hours is to make sure we don't do overtime. So for me, they're very quite good with it. Everyone's told not to do crunch. Yeah.
Yeah, we have like an anti crunch culture, we're not doing that, which is great.
Yeah.
It seems to be a wider thing generally.
Yeah, things have been so chill since we joined 1010.
Yep.
We can only speak for the one studio, but we just have no incentives to crunch. Like, our hours are flexible, but that's more like if you take an hour off today to do something else, just like do an extra hour another day of your choice. But we don't have paid overtime or anything like that, because nobody's going to do overtime.
Yeah.
It's just don't incentivize it, and we won't do it.
Yeah.
I think I'll probably have had a little bit of a different experience then. Creative Assembly is very anti-crunch. They've got very good measures to keep us not working. But the nature of my job does sometimes mean I get in at 8 a.m. and I finish at 6 or 7 in the evening. It's just sort of how long a shoot takes. So over the first week back for Christmas break was a 5-day long 8 until 6 shoot every day, and then that sort of 1 week of crunch put us roughly into a 3-month backlog of data where we couldn't catch up with the data that we needed to process and the shoots that we needed to facilitate. And yeah, we got quite behind quite fast, and I took a week off at the end of it. It was quite intense. It was very fun work. It was never more than I could handle.
Yeah, I think, you know, most companies will be like, don't crunch, but then when it's near release, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very sore topic. I feel like, as representatives of your game, it's like, no. But yeah, I think generally no one anywhere says, we support crunch. But yeah, I suppose it's what strategies are in place to kind of help. And for those of you who've, joined more recently, you might not have had this kind of experience, but those who are more kind of old hats now, have you felt like the kind of process around crunch has changed in the time that you've been in industry?
I mean, for me at least, Creative Assembly's always been very positive with its outlook on crunch, and I mean, it's just like a culture that's set from the top down. Like the leadership decides that we're not going to be doing that, so it feeds down to us. And then if you see someone who's like burning out, you can mention that, and it's like quite a positive culture in that respect.
See something, say something. Yeah. No, good question. Hand back up. Oh, more hands. Let's go. Okay, you guys are gonna have to fight. So okay, closest wins. Easy.
So I guess it's not going to the other side this time. Alright, so it's somewhat something in relation with CA, but also generally I would think it would affect all of you. Is so I'm trying to think. How do you correctly sort of bite back when let's say the board members or investors or the publishers start to push you to make a specific game? For example, I remember a couple of years ago when I looked into CA, there was I can't remember if it was Activision. Sorry, I've literally got the name and I can't speak it for some reason. No, Sega. Sega wanted CA to do the 2012 Olympic game, which clearly would have been a waste of skills for CA, but which is why they bit back with we can make isolation by showing the demo. But is there like what other ways? Let's say when they invest or specifically the publisher wants you to make a specific game or push towards a shorter deadline, which can lead to crunch or worse, a half-made game. What are the most professional, or if not more efficient ways to sort of not damage a relationship, let's say, but rather hold your own and actually keep things at your term?
Yeah, so kind of talking about that relationship between kind of game studio and publisher and how you can kind of, in some ways, control that relationship in a professional way without jeopardizing the studio. Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. That's a very, very big question. Some of you are juniors, so maybe they don't have the answers, but...
Yeah, I mean... above my pay grade.
Yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, that kind of pushback is far above my pay grade. But, like, what does happen and what can happen is, like, you can, like, gauge the sentiment of teams towards the projects they're working on. Like, CA has, like, a gating process where we can check how teams are feeling about the project as they go on. So if the team's feeling really negative about something and there's sort of wide group of people who think this stuff will get done about it. So it's like finding avenues for your feedback and then making sure that it's directed into the right place, and it will get heard if it's a good studio. They will listen.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm not sure if any of you really have, I think it's, for the juniors in the room, it's probably less likely to be...
Well, I would just say it's probably a boundary you set before you actually sign a deal with publisher anyway. There might be some back and forth, but probably not something so major as like, you guys do this like 3 months earlier than we told you to before because we want you to.
Generally with studios, especially of a certain size, it starts to be kind of important to clarify things because there's a lot of money on the line, so usually contracts will be set. So I guess that's really the first and kind of main point of call is clarifying your terms at the start, making sure that you know what you're agreeing to before you agree to it. But that's for like people way above our pay grade, so that's fine. Future people problems, couple years. Now, any other questions? I know we had one more over here.
Off the back of the previous question on the idea of crunch, I wanted to hear about you've all obviously taken down different career paths. How has your relationship with burnout changed while entering your careers?
Ooh, yeah. How have you been handling burnout? I mean, I'm sure none of you had anything like burnout while you were at university because you were very chill, responsible, and did everything on time. But you know, how's that changed now? Your relationship with burnout now you're in the industry.
I think like you are allowed to take days off. You know, sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to do Monday, so I don't, and that's fine. But like, you know, at the end of the day, you're working in this job, but I guess you are more important than that, essentially, and you've got to look after yourself, because otherwise you'll just turn into like scrambled eggs and you won't be able to make any games, you know, if you just completely burn out. So yeah, just take days off, basically, and enjoy yourself. Try not to do work outside of work, unless you really want to.
Fun thing, you can take a burnout day as a mental health day and it goes on to your sick days rather than your holidays.
Still get paid for that.
So you get paid for it. And you keep the holiday days after it as well.
Yeah. I'd also say don't be afraid to like just step away and walk away if you're feeling super burnt out, like at work. Like that happened to me. Like we've got a school design team, so we've got like a lot of responsibility shared. So I have quite a bit on my plate as like a junior. So one day I just like walked away, just asked my senior, just said, I've got to go. Like I've got to step out. So I did, and then like a couple of days after came back and I was right as rain. Like it was all good. So yeah, don't be afraid to do that. And
do communicate though that you're gonna do that. Don't.
Yeah.
This is not like that's not them saying we fully endorse you just like walking off and never coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
Do communicate, please.
That's why like I had that taught with my seniors.
Yeah.
So it's good to have that good communication, like with your managers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we just do reasonable timelines. Like we say like here's when we can get a character for, and we give ourselves like a bit of leeway for feedback and all that. But yeah, like just work the hours you paid and it's fine. Like you're not there for long, all things considering.
Definitely work the hours you're paid.
Yeah.
If they expect a thing by a certain time, you know, don't do it before that time.
If it'll take you more than the hours paid to do that, then push the date back. Don't get it done for that date.
Exactly.
Also, something that's like different from uni is that you've got people with varying levels of experience who are way more experienced than you that you can kind of like fall back on, and you know they could be the backbone of like your department and really help you with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you're a team at the end of the day, so you're allowed to make use of the people around you, just for anything really. You know, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, I suppose that's one of the things when you're in larger teams is you are a team. It's not just you. There are some games that come out by a single person, but these are all people from studios. There is more than just them. As much fun as it would be to drag everyone from Creative Assembly or from 1010 down here, you know, we'll skip on doing that maybe this year, maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Yeah.
It'd be quite a big building for all of Creative Assembly.
Yeah. CA is a big place. But yeah, no, good question. Any other kind of questions? Anything else? Yeah, we have a couple more.
So I don't know why I'm doing the point.
Yeah,
like you.
That's fine. You can handle it from here. You got this.
Sure.
So the GA teaches a lot of like lessons about things like agile, T-shaping, version control. What would you say is the most valuable lesson the GA has taught you guys in
what's the most valuable lesson we've taught you guys?
I think there's one single one. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, don't be an asshole.
Yeah, just teamwork in general, I would say as well.
Yeah.
It's very important to just effectively communicate with other disciplines while you're actually working.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the way it's set up, it kind of naturally builds your soft skills up really well, and the soft skills are like arguably more important than the hard skills. Like, especially when you're working in bigger teams, like if you can't communicate something, then it's going to cause so many problems. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think that the structure of working in the teams here, where it's like a flat structure, there isn't, like, at least when we did it, it was kind of all like democratic. There wasn't like a leader per se, and that builds up your soft skills in a really good way, and like your communication skills, and like particularly if you're going to design, like half of designing is trying to convince other disciplines to do what you want to do, and like also learning to speak their language as well. So being able to work with other disciplines and then understand what makes them tick, and like how to present your design in a way that will get them on board as well. That's all super useful that you can learn from this.
Having a basic understanding of what other people will do with your work is hugely helpful to understanding how to give them your work.
Exactly. Like if you get a prop to put in level and the pivot's just like fucking somewhere, that's not going to be useful. So you got to keep in consideration that the thing you make, it's not just going to be in your hands. Once you've set it out into the wild, the designers are going to be playing with it, and then,
The amount of times I've yelled at programmers, like, other people will look at your code someday. It might be you, but it will probably be someone else.
Got a comment,
yeah. It's, the idea of you're not doing everything in isolation.
Yeah.
You are a part of a team, and people will deal with the things you've made.
Definitely.
So,
same applies to substance graphs and, like painter files. Name them. Don't just have like file 1, file 2. No.
Purely from a character perspective as well, like you'll never be in a room with this many animators again. Even if you get into a studio, there's a good chunk of people you can speak to. And when we do a lot of portfolio reviews, we always like ask them, have you been in contact with an animator about this? Like, do you understand that kind of pipeline? And then like when the legs are just one polygon down, they say no.
Cool. We had another question at the front. Do we still have that mic floating around somewhere? Yeah.
I had a question about the portfolios again. So you guys were saying that if you're applying to a job, you kind of want to like try and focus your portfolio on like what exactly you're applying for. Is it still good to show like a bit of variance like here and there, but still like mostly focus on what you're applying?
Definitely. Like at the end of the day, you're not, super person, so you can't just, I got to apply for this job, better make stuff specifically for this job. Just show what you got, but it's always worth considering if you can kind of give it that edge to show, yes, I am interested in this position and I would very much like a job, please, then that's good.
Yeah, like I will say, when I was applying for jobs, I kept my portfolio pretty static because it was kind of like transferable for like game design for all these other roles. But I kind of shifted the focus more in like the CV, and there was like a cover letter. I'd speak more about that specific role, so like level design, or I'd even like point out like points in the folio where that is more of a focus, like because can be quite difficult to tailor it per studio, but you could always tailor it for game design. For example, you could do like, here's a game design one for like system stuff, and here's one for like level design, just so you've got both of those angles covered.
Yeah. I was gonna say for programming, I think it's a bit more different. That tailoring, it still matters. I think it matters a little less in programming. But if you're applying to a studio that uses like Unreal or Unity, just kind of make sure you got a project that kind of has that. Especially Unreal.
Yeah, that's what I did. Like I shifted up any Unreal projects that I had like higher up on my CV at the Unreal Studios. Like that's a nice and easy one.
Again, knowing what you're applying for does help.
Yes. Do your research.
Yeah.
Outsourcing studios do like a good mix though. Yeah. So Airship and D3T from the art side, they love that when you've got like a good mix of things.
I think a great way of giving someone a quick fly through of your portfolio is just having like a showreel project. So, take some cutscenes from all of your bits, mash them together, just so they get a really quick kind of idea of what you're all about.
Yeah. We have another question.
So obviously the games industry has a lot of different disciplines, design, programming, art, then sub-disciplines within those disciplines. Like you've got Unreal programmer, Unity programmer. You probably have different forms of animation, although I don't know much about it. Same with art, you've got environment art, character art, etc. So my question is what skill sets, this is probably more relevant for like people who are probably not here and they're looking to go into uni, is which skill sets are like quite in demand or very hard to come by? Either those could be like broad disciplines like programming or art, or the sub-disciplines within those specific skill sets. So like something I'm experiencing is Unreal programmers who specialize in C++ is quite rare or very uncommon in the uni at least, and so it's like I've ended up getting like connections or having people approach me just because they heard I do Unreal.
So kind of broad question of what sort of specialisms or kind of what skill sets are kind of in demand, or what people are kind of looking for. What's been your experience of that?
People love someone who can optimize. If you focus on optimization, you're pretty much in the money, although it's not the most exciting. Also technical art. They just love technical artists. So if you like programming and you like art, maybe you can find some middle ground there.
Yeah.
I think from sorry.
No, please, you go first.
Thank you. So from our studio's experience, I would say VFX artists are very much in demand, and UI artists as well, probably. And from an animator's perspective, cinematic animators are also a rare find. So,
Yeah, I was also going to say VFX artists. They're gold dust currently. If you want to get in, VFX artists where to go.
VFX is a standout for sure.
Movies pay more, but games are easy to get for VFX.
Yeah.
For sure.
From a programming perspective, though, in particular, C++ tends to be the real kicker these days. A lot of people don't tend to go for it. in terms of specific specialism, I'd say UI and networking particularly. There's a lot of gameplay out there, but yeah, UI seems to be a common one I keep seeing.
Yeah, don't know what it's like over in the CA lands.
For us, it's mocap techs. there's 3 of us, including me, and we do every Total War game and every Sega West game. It's
a lot of games.
A lot of games, yeah. We don't have enough people.
So if you like doing mocap, speak with this man. He'll hook you up, maybe.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the design department, we always need more technical designers, like that bridge between coding and design. People who can do both of those roles is super useful. And at least at CA, we've recently got our first narrative designer, like straight up narrative design. So I expect we'll get looking for more at some point of that as well. So yeah, those 2.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Yeah, technical design is a big one. Yeah.
Nice. If you can program, it's a marketable skill. Just not that I'm a programming lecturer or anything, but like, yeah. No, cool. Any other kind of questions? Yeah. I noticed it's the same 3 people. You guys have a lot to say.
Yeah,
it's
don't
good.
be shy, guys. If anyone else has any.
So this might be like a flashback back to your uni days, but in general, uni courses tend to push reading materials relate to certain subjects. Less so Falmouth, but in general, there's still quite a lot of reading materials that are recommended. Have you ever found any use while you've been working in your careers with those said reading materials in your field?
Yeah, so reading material. Have you gone back? Have you read clean code, Chris?
No, I barely read documentation.
I do remember, I think it was one of the first lectures we had, Doug was like, read this book about a grasshopper and video games or something. And I was like, because I was just starting out as a student, I was like, you know what, I bloody well will, Doug. And I went to the library and I got it, and it was actually pretty good, but never did anything else.
Guys, you're breaking my heart.
I got a tattoo of it actually, hold on a minute. The little grasshopper from the book. Talking about video games and stuff. There was a moral, I don't remember, it was like 3 years ago. Must have been good though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say for me, while I was at uni, for game design, I read Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell. That was really good. That was between 2nd and 3rd year. I read it during that summer, and the games that I made in the following 3rd year were just so much better, so much more scoped and better designed, and I learned a lot from that. In addition to all the practical stuff I was doing, all those game jams and all that stuff. So yeah, I'd say for game design, that's a really solid one. It kind of has everything. I read some other stuff as well, but that's the headliner one for me. That's the one I learned the most from.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that. It's a really good book, and there's some key theory textbooks that would be useful, I think, for design to read to kind of get a grounding on how everything works. Another really good one is it's called Advanced Game Mechanics by N.S. Adams and Joris Dormans, and they designed the machinations framework, which is super useful for understanding the minutiae of how games fit together and how resources flow in a system and stuff. So I would recommend that, and I've prototyped systems at work using the machinations tools, so there is a real applications to this stuff that you can find. Yeah,
I definitely think it's worth mentioning that you'd be surprised how much knowledge you can get from a book. Essentially, I understand we're in this information. Oh, paper, no thank you, but yeah, I guess the systems behind video games in all aspects of it are quite deep and nuanced, and it can be hard to find that information. So yeah, definitely try picking up a book.
Yeah, well, I will say, even though it's a theory thing, it gave me very practical ways to work. It's when I start doing something, I start from what I learned from all those books and my past experiences all combined. So it's really useful.
Cool.
Do you
Well,
recommend it?
we're gonna have to wrap up. Unfortunately, as much fun as it's been, I know. But thank you guys all so much for coming on up and sharing your wisdom, your sage advice. I suppose this is now a time for you guys to shamelessly plug if people want to follow along. Obviously, you can rep your studio or whatever, but if you want to follow you on social media or anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I guess I've got Twitter, Game Dev Gibbins. Follow me there, and LinkedIn, Jacob Gibbins. And all
What
that.
game are you working on, Jake?
I'm working on Funko Fusion.
Funko Fusion. Yeah.
I'm not giving the elevator pitch. That's man. Even though I should probably.
No, we can save the elevator pitches for another time. But yeah, Funko Fusion, check it out.
Mbrek Games on Twitter. I don't use anything else really.
Cool.
I've got nothing to plug, but I just want to say if anybody has any more questions and just wants to speak privately, just find us. We're going to hang about in there.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, we're fairly
speak to us.
approachable,
Yeah.
even though we're grumpy and stuff. Yeah.
Also, I plug Twitter, no one followed me, so I'm not doing it.
Okay. Okay, fine.
I'm offended from before, yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm all right.
No, anything you want to plug? Nothing for me.
It's just my LinkedIn is Thomas Neill, if anybody wants it.
Cool.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, thank you guys again so much for joining us. This has been the alumni panel. We'll be closing now, but as they said, feel free to accost them. Not too much, but ask them any questions if you didn't get to ask anything now. Feel free to do so throughout the rest of Expo. Yeah, thank you all for coming. Thanks for watching those that are watching remotely. That's the alumni panel.